1AC spreading practice. Contention 1, inherency restriction on non-federal funds preclude effectual representation of the poor and drain funds by forcing service providers that have suffered resilience engage in restricted activities. The economic crisis that magnifies the need for legal service. Rebecca 709. The economic crisis need to revitalize legal system more urgent than ever. Majority of people need later are unable to obtain the capacity. The LSC, the justice gap, threatens the stability of the courts and to direct families of legal representation. Congress restricted lawyers and the programs that receive LSC funds. And Congress divide the categories of people ineligible for representation. Congress imposed poison for restriction on funds. And this program integrity requirement is empirically impossible to comply with despite safe funding utility 7. Congress imposed the implementation of LLC funds on LLC activities illegally. Apartments $390 million in state local for restriction. The LLC's program tech regulation friction program has been able to comply. Thus, the plan: the United States federal government should eliminate restrictions on the use of non-federal funds applicable to legal service corporation. Contention to advantage of Spanish much free speech, sole person restriction to forced advocacy and make conservative political control. Words 6. Congress legislation the LSC designed to force advocacy representation activities viewed as undesirable by those in political power. LSC promulgated regulations following these restrictions. Grantees had to comply or lose funding. Millions of Americans are ineligible for the majority of those go without any legal system restrictions, limited which is legal activities will become income eligible. People eliminated entirely from eligibility entire groups of people. And restriction of non-profits violates the First Amendment, killing democracy and civil society. Let's for K so 5. The third section enhances democracy, allowing for direct citizen action by engaging in advocacy and ensures that more people have access to political or legal service power, protecting the rights of individuals and minority groups. The section ensures diversity in the court with the political power by providing a voice for underrepresented communities to conserve to protect the fundamental First Amendment rights. However, the third section must remain free from government controls, and this spills over to vast right free speech is prerequisite to international peace. Freedom of expression precludes genocide and endless warfare. Susan 96. In the absence of freedom of expression, it is impossible to protect other rights, including the right to life. It is easy for governments to capture the media and fashion them to the instruments of propaganda, the promotion of ethnic war, conflict, genocide. Freedom of expression is the cornerstone of democracy, allowing a government to deny people of information. Such laws in which procedure can be used thus against with less authority. People do not welcome where they are coerced into fear and extreme nationalists and war by their governments. Freedom of expression to challenge it such as necessary to democracy. And our impact outweighs its teachers. Censorship is worse than WK97. The nullification of the human spirit results when human lose control of their own thinking process. The most important political struggle is that which takes place for control. The inner mind bounds of freedom of speech must be defined. And free speech is the biggest impact in all from Solem 2000. The rule of the Broadway framework is promoting community truth, the progressive social trend stipulation intended to encompass social criticism regardless of underlying normative framework. Social practice must be criticized because it violates the moral rights of the person, because it produces bad consequences, because it not effectively achieve a social desirable goal, or because it has a degrading effect on the character of citizens. Judges apply the First Amendment congregations to their own standards. Judges to be determined. Social criticism is progressive. The Constitution will only protect and popular speech with judges agree. And every violation of free speech is an independent impact because free speech is fundamental to humanity. We will always win that free speech enables value like bug number 1. Free speech is the important component of individual liberty figures prominently in what it means to be human. Human beings cannot develop their humanity under a regime that restricts freedom of thought and expression. Government must always treat people as if they were rational autonomous by allowing the information advocacy individuals freedom of expression basis on the moral imperative of recognizing citizens' equality, dignity, and moral agency. We retain our dignity only by insisting no one has the right to withhold an opinion from us. Advantage 2P3. Program integrity regulation on legal services intended to partisan government controls destroys the viability of public-private partnerships. Let's behave 5. The third sector must retain sufficient freedom to utilize the resources of other sectors program integrity regulation posing burdensome restrictions on private funds violation of the First Amendment and furtherance of charitable donors. The third sector must remain in partnership with the government. Public-private partnerships involvement with the government activity has been particularly pronounced in social programs of government, thus increasingly collaborates with charitable funders that implement strategy legal services have highly effective in cooperation of charitable sectors. Legal aid services reformed to enable people to protect the rights day-to-day management of LC grant left to the non-profit grantee. Resources are dependent precisely on the ability of non-profit to remain independent from government control. This is a goal personnel and separation is overly burdensome. And every partnership is a front center for Judges 03. The only way to avoid the restriction is establishing a distinct affiliate organization. The federal government upholds the restriction for Congress to implement private funds and funding made to serve social services. This poses significant threats to the viability of these partnerships. And public-private partnerships are critical to stop infectious diseases. Schmidt 04. Public-private partnerships are taking on the challenge of developing drugs and vaccines ignored by the pharmaceutical industry because they lack profit. The pharmaceutical industry is persona by its own initiatives developing against malaria benefited from recent agreement. Research has previously held up by a lack of resources and absence of the interest of the pharmaceutical industry. Examples are indicative of non-profit entities, governments, and pharmaceutical biotech partnering to develop drugs. It is unlikely that any private company will undertake a single-handedly project for a vaccine. And infectious diseases will evolve without protection and proliferate, leading to extinction of humanity. Ryan 97. Achieving global intrusive speeds with air travel congested cities in less than affluent regions where this virus is most likely to emerge vulnerable, lack of hygiene, the virus, the best medical from competing mutations. A co-evolution will take place not too long with the ease of spreading with the global village. Industrial society has been on bench to the potential emergence of a pandemic. This is dangerous because such a pandemic causes extinction of the human species can touch the responsibility. States and private actors cannot sell the poison pill places directing restrictions on funding the court is key. Delaware 9. Poison pill restrictions on state local private ties up $490 million restrictions on state local private funds control over how their money is spent, raise scarce resources, and non-federal funds restrictions and forced services to create separate organizations which are most less effective as Rule 3. Congress's prohibition on LC funded non-federal funds forced legal services providers to split into separate organizations by no restrict the result was bifurcated. This is substantially weaker in hundreds of ongoing cases. Restricted LC lawyers had to withdraw. And eliminating the program integrity restriction will increase funding for legal services in low-income communities, streamlining inefficient practices designed to circumvent the restriction. Delaware 9. And program integrity regulation requires physical separation or duplicated. The restriction creates dramatic inefficiencies. The restriction on state, local, and funding and funds where private money were lifted and redundant costs could be eliminated, saving implementing dual operating systems would enable the legal services organization to become more conventional legal services case. And LC is the single greatest sources of funding for legal and other sources of funding in decline now. Delaware 7 or 9. LC embodies the federal government's most sustained effort to deliver legal justice. The LC provided legal services within the Native communities, helped million people. The LC is the single greatest source of funding from in the U.S. It's a particular three-pronged partnership that includes state and local government institutions and private donors. And states can solve poison pill restriction until 7 or 9. The poison pill restriction, state, local funds, has $490 million. The restriction denies state, local, and private funds over control over how their money is spent and raises scarce resources. And condition for notice of bipartisan support for legal aid now. This year, even lawmakers looked again the legal fund as a way to waste money of everything and everything. And 2/3 of Americans support legal for West and 2/3 of Americans support federal funding for those who more than 2/3 said it's extremely very important that Americans have access to legal sources. The ABA poll found that respondents themselves feared the legal result of recession. That's the process.